Hello everyone. Today I want to tell you a story about my friend Josh. Josh is an awesome kid, and just like me, he absolutely loves playing Roblox. There are so many games to explore, so many adventures to have. You can build a city, you can be a superhero, or you can even explore a mysterious island. But Josh's favorite game, the one he played every single day, was called Grow a Garden. He thought it was the best game ever made. He loved the idea of planting tiny seeds and watching them grow into amazing plants. It was his own little world, a place where he could create something beautiful from almost nothing. The world of Grow a Garden was bright and colourful. The sun was always shining, the sky was a perfect blue, and the little plots of land were just waiting for a dedicated farmer. Josh dreamed of having the most amazing garden in the entire game. He imagined rows and rows of bright red strawberries, tall stalks of golden corn, and big round pumpkins. He pictured himself walking through his magnificent creation, a master farmer with a garden that all the other players would come to admire. This wasn't just a game to him, it was a passion, a digital dream he was determined to make real. Every time Josh logged in, he felt a rush of excitement. He would see other players with their huge farms filled with exotic plants and fancy decorations. They had sparkling fountains and cute little garden gnomes. Josh would walk by their plots and think, wow, one day that will be me. He knew it wouldn't be easy. He knew it would take a lot of work and a lot of patience, but he was ready for the challenge. He was ready to put in the time and effort to build his garden from the ground up, one small plant at a time. It was his ultimate goal. The game wasn't just about planting, though. It was about strategy and making smart choices. You had to decide which crops to buy, when to sell them, and how to invest your earnings to grow your farm even bigger. This is what made it so interesting for Josh. He loved the idea that his decisions mattered. Every little choice could lead to bigger and better things. He felt like a real business owner, a real farmer, making plans for his future success. And so, with his big dream in his heart, Josh was ready to begin his epic gardening adventure. The big day finally arrived. Josh logged in to Grow a Garden, ready to start his journey. He opened his inventory to see how much money he had to begin. He looked at the top corner of his screen and his heart sank just a little bit. All he had was 20 shekels. That was the starting amount for every new player. 20 shekels. It sounded like a lot, but when he opened the in-game shop, he realized it was barely anything. The fancy seeds for watermelons or starfruit cost hundreds of shekels. He couldn't even afford a single strawberry seed. A feeling of disappointment washed over him for a moment. He saw other players running around with baskets full of valuable crops, heading to the market to make a fortune. And here he was, with just a few coins in his digital pocket. How was he ever going to build his dream garden with so little? It felt like trying to build a huge castle with only 2 tiny bricks. He scrolled through the shop again, his eyes scanning the prices. Everything seemed so expensive, so far out of reach. For a second, he felt a little bit discouraged, a little bit small. But Josh was not a quitter. He took a deep breath and reminded himself of his goal. Every big farm had to start somewhere, right? The players with the giant gardens probably started with only 20 shekels too. This was just the first challenge, the first test of his determination. He couldn't let it stop him before he even began. So he pushed the disappointment aside and replaced it with a new feeling: focus. He had to be smart. He had to make the most of what he had, no matter how small it seemed. This was his chance to prove he could be a great farmer. He looked at the shop one last time, this time with a strategic mind. He wasn't looking for what he wanted, he was looking for what he could afford. He scrolled past the shiny, expensive seeds until he reached the very bottom of the list. And there it was, the humble carrot seed. Each carrot seed cost 10 shekels. With his 20 shekels, he could buy exactly 2. It wasn't the exciting start he had imagined, but it was a start. It was something. And something was a whole lot better than nothing. He knew this was his only option. With his decision made, Josh clicked the buy button. 2 tiny carrot seeds appeared in his inventory. He felt a small spark of excitement return. These weren't just any carrot seeds. They were carrot seeds. They were the foundation of his entire future farm, the beginning of everything. He carefully walked over to his empty plot of land. It was just a square of plain brown dirt, but to Josh it was a canvas full of potential. He equipped his little shovel, a basic tool every player started with, and got to work preparing the soil for his precious seeds. He carefully dug 2 small holes in the dirt, placing them just the right distance apart. He had seen the more experienced players do this, and he wanted to do everything perfectly. He imagined he was a real farmer, treating the soil with care. After the holes were ready, he opened his inventory and selected the first carrot seed. He placed it gently into the hole and covered it with dirt. Then he did the same with the second seed. There they were, 2 tiny bumps in the soil, holding all of his hopes. He felt a sense of pride in this small accomplishment. Now came the most important part: water. He equipped his basic watering can, which magically refilled with water for free. He walked over to the first planted seed and tilted the can, watching as little blue water droplets sprinkled onto the soil. He made sure to give it just the right amount, not too much and not too little. He then moved to the second seed and did the same thing. He knew that without water his seeds would never grow. This simple act of watering felt incredibly important, like he was nurturing his dream and helping it come to life. With the seeds planted and watered, there was nothing left to do but wait. A little timer appeared above each spot, showing how long it would take for the carrots to grow. It felt like it would take forever. Josh stood there for a moment, just looking at his 2 little planted seeds in his big, empty field. He felt a mix of emotions. He was proud of his work, hopeful for the future, and just a little bit impatient. He knew that this was the very first step on a very long journey, and he couldn't wait to see what would happen next. Josh made a promise to himself. He would be the best carrot farmer the game had ever seen. He didn't just log off and wait for the timer to run out. Oh no, he was dedicated. He stayed in the game, watching over his 2 little plants like a worried parent. He made sure no one accidentally trampled on them, and he kept an eye on the soil to make sure it didn't look too dry. Every few minutes he would give them another little sprinkle of water from his trusty watering can, just to be safe. His friends might have called it silly, but to Josh it was serious business. After what felt like an eternity, something magical happened. A tiny green sprout pushed its way out of the dirt from the first spot. It was so small, almost too small to see, but it was there. Josh leaned his character in close to get a better look, his eyes wide with excitement. A few moments later, a second green sprout appeared from the other spot. He had done it. His seeds were growing. A huge smile spread across his face. This was real progress. It was a sign that his hard work was already starting to pay off. The journey from seed to plant had officially begun. Seeing those 2 little green shoots filled Josh with a new wave of motivation. This was no longer just a patch of dirt with some seeds in it. This was now a real, living garden, even if it was the smallest garden in the entire server. He felt a strong connection to these 2 little digital plants. He had brought them to life with his own choices and actions. He spent the next hour just watching them, cheering them on as they grew a little bit taller, their green leaves slowly unfurling under the bright Roblox sun. His dedication did not go unnoticed. Another player, who had a medium-sized farm nearby, walked over to see what Josh was doing. The player saw Josh carefully tending to his 2 tiny plants. "Just starting out?" the player asked in the chat. "Yep," Josh typed back proudly. "These are my first 2 carrots." The other player gave him a thumbs-up emoji and said, "Looking good, keep it up." This small interaction meant the world to Josh. It made him feel like he was part of the Grow a Garden community, a real farmer among farmers. The timer above the plants finally hit 0. The small green sprouts had transformed into full-grown carrots, with big, leafy, green tops sticking out of the ground. It was a beautiful sight. It was time for the harvest. Josh equipped his hands and walked up to the first carrot. A little icon appeared, telling him he could pull it. He clicked the button, and with a satisfying pop sound, his character pulled a bright orange carrot from the ground. 1 carrot was now in his inventory. He did the same for the second one. He had successfully grown and harvested his first crops. He opened his inventory to admire his 2 perfect carrots. They looked amazing. But he knew he couldn't just keep them. The goal was to make money to buy more seeds. So he started the journey to the in-game market. The market was a bustling place located in the center of the game world. Players were running back and forth, selling their crops to the shopkeeper, a friendly-looking NPC named Farmer McDonald. Josh clutched his 2 carrots tightly in his inventory as he walked, feeling like a real businessman on his way to make his first sale. He arrived at the market and walked up to the counter. He selected the 2 carrots from his inventory and placed them on the selling table. Farmer McDonald smiled and a little cash register sound played. The carrots disappeared, and in their place, new shekels appeared in Josh's account. He had sold each carrot for 15 shekels. That meant he had earned a total of 30 shekels from his very first harvest. He had started with 20 shekels, and now he had 30. He had made a profit of 10 shekels. It wasn't a lot, but it was a start. Josh was over the moon. He had successfully completed a full cycle buy, plant, grow, harvest and sell. He had turned his initial 20 shekels into 30. This small victory felt huge. It proved that his plan could work. It proved that with patience and hard work, he could slowly build his fortune. He now had enough money to buy 3 carrot seeds instead of just 2. He was already on his way to expanding his little farm. With a heart full of joy and a pocket full of 30 shekels, he eagerly headed back to the seed shop. With his 30 shekels, Josh bought 3 new carrot seeds. He ran back to his plot, dug 3 new holes, planted the seeds, and watered them with extra care. He was expanding. The cycle began again, but this time he was growing 3 carrots instead of 2. As he waited for them to grow, however, he noticed something new. Little green, spiky things started to pop up in the dirt around his precious carrot sprouts. They were weeds. The game had introduced a new challenge now that he had a slightly bigger plot. The weeds were a problem. A little pop-up message explained that weeds would slow down the growth of his crops. If he let them get out of control, they could even ruin his plants completely. Josh felt a little jolt of panic. He had to protect his carrots. He quickly learned that he could pull the weeds by clicking on them, just like harvesting. So he immediately got to work. He ran around his small plot, clicking on every single weed he could find, pulling them out of the ground before they could cause any harm. It was more work, but he was determined. This new challenge taught him an important lesson. Farming wasn't just about planting and watering. It was also about protecting and maintaining his garden. He had to be vigilant. He couldn't just plant his seeds and walk away. He had to actively care for his plot, defending it from threats like the pesky weeds. This made the game even more engaging for him. He felt like a true guardian of his garden, a protector of his crops. He spent the entire growth cycle on high alert, pulling every weed the moment it appeared. Finally, his 3 carrots were ready to harvest. Thanks to his constant weeding, they had grown perfectly without any delays. He harvested them and took them to the market. This time, he earned 45 shekels from the sale. He had turned 30 shekels into 45. He was slowly but surely building his wealth. The challenge of the weeds hadn't defeated him. It had made him a better farmer. He now knew that challenges would come, but as long as he faced them head-on and didn't give up, he could overcome them and continue to succeed. The cycle continued, each one more successful than the last. After selling his 3 carrots, Josh had 45 shekels. He couldn't quite afford 5 carrot seeds, so he made a smart choice. He bought 4 carrot seeds for 40 shekels and saved the extra 5. He planted his 4 carrots, diligently watered them, and fought off all the weeds. When he sold those 4 carrots, he earned 60 shekels. Now he was really making progress. He used that money to buy 6 carrot seeds, and the farm continued to grow. Soon, Josh had a neat little patch of 10 carrots growing all at once. It was starting to look like a proper farm. But with more plants came more work. There were more weeds to pull and a larger area to water. It took him longer to care for his garden, but he didn't mind one bit. He loved the routine. He would log in, check on his plants, pull all the weeds, water every single one, and then wait patiently for the harvest. He found a rhythm, a peaceful flow to his work that was incredibly satisfying. After several successful carrot harvests, Josh finally saved up enough money to buy something new. He had over 100 shekels. He went to the shop and scrolled past the carrots. He saw that he could now afford turnip seeds. They cost a little more and took a little longer to grow, but they also sold for more money at the market. It was a risk, but it was a calculated one. He decided to invest. He bought a few turnip seeds and planted them alongside his trusty carrots. It was his first step into diversifying his farm. Watching the turnips grow was a new and exciting experience. They looked different from the carrots, with big, broad leaves. When it was time to harvest, he pulled up round purple and white turnips. He took them to the market and was thrilled to see that they sold for 25 shekels each. His investment had paid off handsomely. He now had 2 successful crops. He started to create a system, planting some carrots for a quick profit and some turnips for a bigger long-term gain. He was thinking like a true strategist. Weeks passed, and Josh's farm underwent an incredible transformation. The small, empty plot of land was now a vibrant and bustling garden. He had rows and rows of different crops. There were the familiar orange tops of carrots, the broad leaves of turnips, the bright red jewels of strawberries, and even a patch of tall golden corn stalks. He had reinvested his profits over and over again, always saving a little, always trying a new seed, and always expanding. His hard work was visible for everyone to see. He had finally built his dream garden. He didn't just have plants anymore. With the extra money he had earned, he started to add decorations. He bought a charming wooden fence to go around his entire garden. He installed a small, bubbling fountain in the center, which made a peaceful sound as he worked. He even bought a little scarecrow with a funny hat to watch over his corn. His farm wasn't just productive, it was beautiful. It was a place that made him happy every time he logged in. It was his own personal paradise built from scratch. Other players in the game started to notice Josh's farm. They would walk by and stop to admire his work. "Wow, amazing garden," they would type in the chat. "How did you get so many cool plants?" Josh would always smile and take the time to answer them. He would tell them his story, how he started with just 20 shekels and 2 carrot seeds. He would give new players advice, telling them to be patient, to work hard, and to not give up, even when they only had a little bit to start with. He became an inspiration to others. One day, Josh stood at the edge of his farm, looking at everything he had built. He saw the sparkling fountain, the neat rows of colorful crops, and the happy visitors walking by. He remembered standing in that very same spot when it was nothing but an empty field, holding only 2 carrot seeds in his inventory. He felt an incredible sense of accomplishment. It was more than just a game. He had learned a valuable lesson about how small beginnings, when combined with patience and smart choices, can lead to amazing results. So, what's the big takeaway from Josh's epic Roblox garden adventure? The most important lesson he learned was the power of patience. When he started with only 20 shekels, it would have been easy to get frustrated and quit. He couldn't buy the cool, fancy plants right away. He had to start with the most basic item in the shop, but he was patient. He understood that building something great takes time. He didn't try to rush things. He focused on the small step in front of him, knowing it would lead to bigger steps later on. He also learned that clever choices are just as important as hard work. He didn't just randomly spend his money. He thought about his decisions. Buying those first 2 carrots was a smart choice because it was the only choice he could make to get started. Later, when he decided to save up for turnips, that was another clever choice. It was a risk, but it was a calculated risk that helped his farm grow even faster. He learned to think like a strategist, always planning for the future and making the most of the resources he had. The story also shows us that you should never be discouraged by a small start. Everyone, in games and in life, has to start somewhere. Josh's massive, beautiful garden all began with 2 tiny carrot seeds. It's easy to look at people who are already successful and feel like you can never catch up. But Josh proved that's not true. By focusing on his own journey, working hard every day, and celebrating his small victories along the way, he was able to build something truly incredible. His success wasn't instant, it was earned. And that, my friends, is the real secret. Whether you're playing Grow a Garden on Roblox or working towards a goal in real life, the principles are the same. Be patient, make smart choices, work hard, and don't give up when you face challenges. Your 2 carrots might be learning a new skill, saving a small amount of money, or practicing a hobby. If you care for them, protect them, and help them grow, you'll be amazed at the wonderful garden you can create for yourself. Josh's story reminds us that from the smallest seeds, the greatest things can grow.